Well, the Backrooms movie released, and I honestly have nothing else to really cover, so why not? This movie's been getting praise, some mixed reactions from TikTok brain people who, well, seem to lack the understanding of what makes a good movie. Honestly, the two things that made me most interested in this movie was the fact that seemingly the stupidest people ever were having the absolute worst takes ever on this movie in a way where I could tell they were just being extremely bad faith, and seemingly actual movie critics were seeming to jive with this movie. And so, I mean, it's an A24 horror movie. Why not? I'll go check it out. To be honest, when this initially got announced, I thought this was going to be slap. I thought this was going to be like the FNAF movie where they got some guy who was loosely connected to something that people like related to the IP, got him on board, and then they just pump out some slop version of it for mass audiences. But to my surprise, this movie has some sauce. I actually really enjoyed this movie for the most part. I think this movie has some of the greatest found footage segments I've seen in a movie to date, honestly. Generally, it's a format I feel like doesn't work very well on the big screen and doesn't really have that intimacy as if you were looking through some file and found like a random MP4 file with like some old footage. But for some reason, I had like an amazing screening with this movie where everyone was dead silent, and I really love that because I was really able to connect with the segments of this movie that were found footage style, and yeah, it was just like really cool. I honestly have to praise the director. This is his first movie ever, and for how young he has a really solid grasp on how to really light a scene in a way that is interesting and how to really compose a shot in a way that feels uncanny even when they're outside the back rooms. Like anytime that there are shots of the store from the outside or just the main character walking around, there's this uncanny aspect to the movie that kind of feels like a Wes Anderson film. And there's even segments later on in the movie that remind me of something like David Lynch's work with like Twin Peaks. Like there's a segment in this movie that feels straight out of the Black Lodge. Like this kid has the sauce when it comes to directing. The cast is also doing a pretty good job in this movie. I actually really like our lead Clark, who is this guy who owns a furniture store, a little down on his luck, kind of in a weird transitional period in his life, trying to figure out where he needs to go after a divorce. When we're first introduced to our two leads, the therapist and Clark, I was a little shaky because I will say some of the dialogue in that scene is a little hammy, and I was like, I don't know if I'm completely on board with how this cast is going to work together. But I do find the way that they use that scene later on in a recontextualization that was very good to really just kind of bring the movie full circle in terms of the cast. And I honestly didn't have a problem with anyone in this movie. Like, it's a very small cast. I think there's a total of like 7 people in the movie, period. Overall, everyone had pretty good performances. The script was generally pretty okay too. There was some moments with the pacing where I felt like the movie was going to be a little slow. I'm like, oh, is this movie going to be boring? Like for the first, like, I'd say 20 minutes of this movie, I was like, oh God, is this movie just going to be slow and boring in a way that is just like not entertaining to me? But I think the movie picks up pretty quickly. And I think especially when they get to the second handheld segment of the movie, that's when I feel like the movie goes into full gear. I think this movie has a solid like 20 to 30 minute period where it's in handheld mode, where it is some of the best found footage segments I've ever seen in a movie. Like, I haven't felt that amount of stress with a movie in a while. Like, I haven't really been in a position with a movie where I'm like, oh God, I don't want this guy to keep going, but I also do because like it's scary as shit. But like, there was a period of this movie where I'm like, oh God, I'm gonna have to give this like a 9 or a 10. But I do feel like the movie does peter out in its last like quarter in a way that is a little strange. There is a bit of a tonal shift in the movie that I don't know if I entirely agree with what it does to the rest of the movie. Like, I feel like the movie had some 9 to 10 out of 10 pace going on. Like, it was able to find its stride, but it kind of peters out to go into some Lynchian territory that I don't know if it entirely works in a way that like complements the movie. But I have to appreciate what the movie was going for in that aspect. There's a lot of really great practical effects involving monsters that is just like pretty well done. And like, there's nothing about this movie I think is inherently like terrible. There's just certain things I'm like, I could have done without that, or I would have done that differently. Overall, though, this is a really strong debut from a YouTuber. YouTubers are actually doing really well in terms of like actually doing pretty decent horror movies recently. And yeah, I'm just feeling really strongly about this movie. I would highly recommend it if you guys want to go watch it. It's actually a pretty damn good movie, surprisingly. I will most definitely be keeping an eye out on this director when it comes to doing found footage stuff in the future. If this guy kind of stays in this lane of like found footage horror mixed in with like elements of like film and stuff, I think this guy will have a fantastic career ahead of him. So in the end, I'm feeling about an 8 on this movie. Really solid movie, good directorial debut.